Hi, Nikki Fletcher here. Now, as many of you are aware, I have been writing about infertility and the effect that it has on people's lives for a while now. I've been a bit quiet over the last year because I had a huge wobble, which I'm only just coming out of. And I was starting to write again when I found out that it was the National Infertility Awareness Week over in the States running this week. So I thought I want to do some stuff to raise some awareness. Now, I've been doing writing, etc., and I thought it's actually time that I step out from behind the protection, if you like, the almost anonymity of writing and do something to camera. So here we go. And I think today what I want to talk to you about is the fact that people who haven't come into close contact with unresolved infertility don't realise that it is a form of bereavement. Now, I just want to clarify what I'm talking about here. I've used the term unresolved infertility, and by that I mean that you've got to the stage where you know that there is no hope ever of you having a biological child. Hope has left the building. So, no amount of trying to improve your fertility will help. You've got to the stage where you've got to try and accept that you will never have a child. And it really is a bereavement. And yet it is a bereavement like nothing else that I have ever come across. And I've had a little bit of experience about bereavement, just for the people who have only got to know me recently. My father died 25 years ago, almost exactly 25 years ago. I was away on a honeymoon, on my first honeymoon, and I was 25 at the time. So yeah, that happened almost half my lifetime ago. My mother died, or rather was killed, 18 months later. My stepfather died, I think it was about 6 or 7 years later. So as I say, I've had in a very short period of time, in my mid-20s, I had to deal with a lot of bereavement. And I discovered that the first year was always the worst. You go through the time when you've got to deal with your first birthday without that person, without that parent. You've got to deal with their first birthday, first anniversaries, first Christmas, first Easter, etc. And as time passes, you go through all of those first. You get up to the first 12 months. You come to the first anniversary of their death, first anniversary of their funeral. And then the firsts stop. There are very few firsts after that. I experienced one because I got married a second time. So there was a wedding. Sorry, got a hiccup then, which was another first. But as time progressed, everything else got a little tiny bit easier. The pain started to fade, and the memories, the happy memories, they would get stronger. And they were very, very helpful. Trouble is that when you are dealing with infertility, as you can see, that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen at all. Andrew and I stopped trying to conceive almost 4 years ago, and this is still how I react, because it's not just that we've not had a child, it's the fact that all of our dreams and aspirations that we had surrounding having a family were gone as well. And you're grieving whilst you're going through it as well, and it doesn't get any easier. I said that after my parents died, that, you know, the first year was the hardest, second year was a bit easier, third year was a bit easier. It's not like that with infertility. It actually gets harder and harder with every year. I have used to have a very regular cycle. You could stop your watch by it, or set your watch by it, almost. Yeah, it was 27 days and then that was it. Whilst we were really being proactive in trying to conceive, I was also doing something called charting. Now, charting is when you take your waking temperature every day and you mark it on a chart. You mark any pain that you've got. You keep a record of any vaginal fluids that you've got, the consistency of them, the colour, etc. Because all of the charting helps you to determine when you are at your most fertile, when your ovulation is and when you're at your most fertile, so that you can maximise your chances of conceiving. Now, I did that every single cycle or every day for 6 years. That's a heck of a lot of time to be focusing on that. And you get to day 27 in my case, and you're hoping against hope that your period doesn't start, and then it does. And you're grieving all over again. It's like another bereavement, 13 times a year. You might go on to day 28 for one day, or one cycle rather. You go, oh, please, please let this be the time. And then again your period starts, and it doesn't get any easier. It just gets harder and harder and harder. And I think this is one of the most difficult things that people who are struggling with unresolved infertility to A, understand themselves, and B, to help other people understand. Because it is so difficult to talk about, as you can see. But unless we start to explain to people that this is what it's like, we can't really blame them for not understanding. So that's one of the reasons why I've been incredibly brave, I think, and I've got through this. Because the stigma that is currently around or surrounding infertility issues is almost the state that we were in sort of 20 or 30 years ago about mental health issues. Very few people talked about mental health issues 30 years ago. Nobody talked about it if they were dealing with it. There was very little publicity about it, and that has started to change, thankfully. It's not changing about infertility. And unfortunately, it's the people who are dealing with the infertility who need to take that first step. So, although it's difficult, I do ask you, encourage you to try and share a little bit more, because by sharing, we will help the rest of the world to understand how difficult it is. Because infertility really does suck. And one of the problems is the fact that we feel so ashamed by it. There's a stigma still about talking about it. It gets brushed under the carpet slightly. And we've got to change that. And that's why things like Infertility Awareness Week is so important, to raise awareness. So I'm going to stop now, because I'm not quite sure how much more I can say without totally losing the plot. I hope you managed to understand a little tiny bit of what I've been saying through the tears. Bye for now.